Once upon a time, in the ancient Greek city of Colophon, nestled along the sun-kissed shores of Ionia, there lived a philosopher and a poet named Xenophanes. His days were spent wandering through the bustling agora, engaging in spirited conversations with fellow thinkers, and pondering the mysteries of the cosmos beneath the radiant Aegean sun. Xenophanes, distinguished by his flowing white beard and keen intellect, had a heart filled with curiosity and a mind ablaze with ideas. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he found solace not in the pantheon of anthropomorphic gods that adorned the temples, but in the ethereal wonders that stretched across the heavens. One day, Xenophanes embarked on a journey beyond the familiar streets of Colophon, drawn by the whispers of wisdom echoing from distant lands. He traveled across the azure seas, his sandals kissing the shores of various Greek colonies and foreign territories. Along the way, he engaged with other philosophers, exchanging ideas like precious gems shared among kindred spirits. In Sicily, a land rich in cultural diversity, Xenophanes encountered philosophers who challenged his thoughts and expanded the horizons of his intellect. The island's sunsets bathed them in hues of amber and gold, inspiring verses that would later become fragments of his poetic legacy. Xenophanes' journeys weren't just physical. They were explorations of the mind and soul. He questioned the traditions of his time, challenging the anthropomorphic gods of Greek mythology. In his poetry, he envisioned a singular, transcendent deity, a divine force that surpassed the limitations of mortal understanding. As the years unfolded, Xenophanes' influence extended beyond the Ionian coast. His ideas, like ripples in a philosophical pond, reached the ears of a young thinker named Parmenides. This encounter marked the passing of an intellectual torch, as Parmenides carried forward the flame of abstract contemplation, forever indebted to the wanderer from Colophon. Xenophanes was born around the year 570 BCE in the ancient Greek city of Colophon, which was located in Ionia on the western coast of Asia Minor. He was a traveling poet and a sage. His works are fragmented, some shrouded in the mists of history, but he is recognized for his critical perspectives on traditional Greek religious beliefs and for introducing a more abstract and monotheistic concept of God. Xenophanes, in essence, was the first monotheist in the ancient Greek world. Xenophanes criticized the anthropomorphic depictions of gods prevalent in Greek mythology. He pointed out the inconsistency and immorality attributed to the gods in traditional stories. His famous quote, "If oxen, horses, and lions had hands and could create images, they would fashion gods in the likeness of oxen, horses, and lions." This reflects his skepticism about the human tendency to project human qualities onto divine beings. Xenophanes introduced the idea of a single, all-encompassing, and transcendent deity. This god was conceived as a higher, more abstract, and unified being, distinct from the diverse and anthropomorphic pantheon of traditional Greek gods. Xenophanes' God was not limited by human characteristics or emotions. Xenophanes emphasized the oneness of God, contrasting it with the multiplicity of the Greek gods. One God, greatest among gods and men, not at all like mortals in body or in mind. Xenophanes proposed that the true God was incorporeal, devoid of physical form, in contrast to the Greek gods who were believed to reside on Mount Olympus. Xenophanes' God was beyond the constraints of specific location or material existence. This aligns with later monotheistic concepts where God is often described as incorporeal, transcendent, and eternal. Whole he sees, whole he thinks, and whole he hears. But completely without toil, he shakes all things by the thought of his mind. Always he abides in the same place, not moving at all. Nor is it seemingly for him to travel to different places at different times. Xenophanes' monotheistic conception involved a deity with universal oversight and knowledge. This god was not confined to a specific locale or limited by the characteristics of individual city-states. Instead, Xenophanes' god was all-encompassing and aware of everything happening in the cosmos. Xenophanes acknowledged the limitations of human understanding when it came to comprehending the divine. But without effort, the gods and men reach whatever they wish. But what man can do, and what he can't, is beyond him to know. For 'tis vain to search out what can't be searched. It's important to note that while Xenophanes' ideas contained elements of monotheism, they were not fully developed in the way later monotheistic religions would articulate the concept of a single omnipotent and benevolent God. Xenophanes' philosophical contributions laid the groundwork for a more abstract and unified understanding of the divine. Challenging the traditional polytheistic views of his time, his influence can be seen in the works of later philosophers and theologians who grappled with the question about the nature of God and the divine. Xenophanes, picking up where the Milesian school left off, sought to expand and improve upon the work of his predecessors. And instead of limiting his speculations to one stuff or substance, his theory is based upon the interplay of two substances, earth and water. All things that come into being and grow are earth and water. According to the historical sources, Xenophanes seems to have held that the opposition of wet and dry in the world is the preeminent explanatory basis for the phenomenon of the natural world. Xenophanes held that the history of the natural world has been a continually alternating process of extreme dryness and wetness. At the point of extreme wetness, the earth sinks completely into mud, and all humans perish. Once the world begins to dry out, there is a period of regeneration in which life on Earth begins again. Xenophanes gathered the proof for this thesis from the existence of various fossilized imprints of sea creatures as well as seashells that are found far inland. It should be noted that what is significant about his viewpoint is not so much the conclusion at which he arrives, but rather the process he utilizes to support it. Prior thinkers had speculated on the possibility that the Earth had been reduced to mud, but Xenophanes seems to have been the first to provide empirical evidence coupled with deduction to support and develop his theory. Xenophanes has been accredited with demythologizing heavenly phenomenon. Xenophanes says, "The sea is the source of water and of wind, for without the great sea there would be no wind, nor streams of rivers, nor rainwater from on high. But the great sea is the begetter of clouds and winds, and rivers." Xenophanes also believed that rainbows come from clouds, or that clouds change into rainbows. Xenophanes seems to have held the view that the sun comes into being, perhaps newly each day, either by a collection of ignited clouds or by pieces of fiery earth. It would have been natural for someone who had lived his life around bodies of water to make several observations about streams, winds, and mists. What is lacking from Xenophanes and the traditional account is any clear explanation for why he held these beliefs. Why did he think that the sea created clouds and wind? It might be for the sake of opposition against the mythological and the Homeric tradition. Xenophanes appeared to live into his 90s, thereby placing his death sometime after 478 BCE. This is indicated by the following lines from one of Xenophanes' remaining fragments, which shows him to still be writing poetry at 92 years of age. Already there are 67 years tossing about my counsel throughout the land of Greece. And from my birth up until then there were 25 to add to these. This concludes the episode on Xenophanes. Join me next time as we journey through the annals of ancient Greek philosophy. If you like the episode, don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Hermes. See you next time.